time, or should I send
No, yeah, I can do that. So we're recording and everyone is in, so it is, you all now have the mic.
You can come this way, Hazel, it's all right.
Welcome, welcome.
Sarah, will you be my emotional support giver? All of a sudden, I'm like, wait. You just go.
Whenever you're ready.
Whatever. Okay,
Mhm.
so everyone's in?
Yeah,
Okay,
I made an announcement.
all right. You can hear me okay?
No, it's not on, or is,
I think,
hello?
I think
No,
you
now?
muted all.
Okay,
Which one is that one?
1 second, folks.
That one yours?
Yeah. Should that had her sound.
Can you, yeah, that's good.
I paid attention to the buttons.
That
I'll
makes
try
the
not
whole
to
theater
yell off here.
experience.
Is this okay? Is my voice all right for you? All right, great. So welcome to the Reasonable Accommodations panel. My name is Thea Pueschel. I'm a neurodivergent, non-binary writer, filmmaker, and multimedia artist, and the chapter's liaison for Women Who Submit. And if you've been around the organization for a while, you've probably seen me do different things. So, and today I'm doing a panel, so yet another different thing. Today we're not here to talk about disabilities of the panelists or that of my own. We are here to learn how to create environments that are welcoming to people who have disabilities, as well as learn how to write disabled characters that are realistic and grounded. So, first slide, please.
Mhm. One second.
So I just want to start that we're going with identity versus person first language. A lot of times in academia and different places, people will do person first language, like people with disabilities. When I'm in my professional capacity, I use that language because I'm writing reports regarding people with disabilities. But today our panelists are all identity first, which means they identify with their lived experience and then, you know, what they do. So I just want to invite you to listen with curiosity and not offer corrections with how they refer to themselves. And the next slide. All right, so what are reasonable accommodations? So a lot of times we don't really think about what kind of accommodations that a person may need because it's outside of our lived experience, right? We might not think about how someone with shorter legs might need to know how many stairs there are and how tall the stairs are. Because if you have long legs, that's not really something that you need to think about. So the idea behind reasonable accommodations is it's an ADA term, which is American Disabilities Act, meaning that basically creating access and opportunities to those who have disabilities that are equal to those who have that are non-disabled. And part of the inspiration for this panel comes from both my creative and professional experience. So during the pandemic, I met a lot of disabled writers who, for the first time ever, actually had the opportunity to engage in the creative space. Like, I know one writer who's in Europe and she has 21 different autoimmune issues and disabilities. And previously, she never had an opportunity at all to participate in the writer space because she's mainly bedbound, you know? And so now she's like published a lot and she's had such, you know, she's been able to do a lot with her life and she speaks about it publicly. So that's great, but then as the pandemic started, or the lockdown, I should say, we're still in the pandemic, as the lockdown started waning, the opportunities started to become more limited. And then also I served as a panelist on a few grants for organizations. And what I saw time and again is so many organizations do not even offer the basic ADA reasonable accommodation. So many, maybe well-intended, don't really understand what they need to be providing or how to provide it. So hopefully with our conversation today, we can give a little light on that. And then the other thing is I work with adults with developmental disabilities and I write technical reports regarding them getting their developing independent living skills. And so one of those things that keep coming up time and again is the lack of access to creative spaces. And I mean, the folks that I work with are brilliant artists and writers, and yet there's so many barriers that are creating blockages and preventing their work from getting out into the world. So the creative problems are a lack of access to basic accommodations. I think that's another slide. Next slide, sorry. We don't, okay. Oh, I guess I described what disability is, but you can read what disability is. It's basically, you know, I went off my script. Basically, it's, you know, an impairment of some sort of mind or body that creates participation restrictions. And it could be physical and it could be mental, it could be diagnosed, it could be undiagnosed. And what I mean by undiagnosed is a person could experience issues and not be able to afford access to care and can't get diagnosed. And then other times people are diagnosed with some things and other things are unspecified because they don't know what it is. There's no medical terminology that they, you know, check all the boxes. And so, you know, it's undiagnosed, even though it's something that's very real. So it could be mental and physical, I already said that. And then the next slide, Sochi. And so 1 in 4 Americans are disabled. And there's visible disabilities and invisible disabilities. And there's 1.3 billion people in the world that are disabled. And the reality is, at one point, most of us, if we don't have a disability right now, will be disabled, either temporary or long-term. So this is because Dr. Lara, Ameen, said to me, you know, people are becoming disabled all the time. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. And so she inspired me to look up the stats. So we're done with the slides for now.
Oh, stop here.
So we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelists. I'll introduce do their introduction first and then invite them to read and then introduce the next person, just so that we keep it going, keep it engaged, and you don't have to keep listening tonight. All right. So hello, Lara, how are you? We have Lara's audio.
It's me. I was muted.
Oh, okay, it was on you this time.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to go ahead and read your bio, and then we're going to hear your words. Lara Ameen is a screenwriter, novelist, short fiction writer, sensitivity authenticity reader, and holds a PhD in education with a disability studies emphasis from Chapman University. She received an MFA in screenwriting from California State University, Northridge. Her short fiction has been published in Prismatica magazine, Disabled Voices Anthology, Flash Fiction magazine, Drunk Monkeys, Just Bim and Dandy, Hair Street, Butterfly Review, and elsewhere. She made her traditional publishing debut as a contributor to the 2024 Lambda Literary Finalist Young Adult Multi-Genre Anthology, Being Ace, published by Page Street YA. So would you like to share your words with us?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Thea, for reading my bio. I'm going to be reading an excerpt. I'll hold up the book from Being Ace. It's an anthology of all asexual authors of various backgrounds, disabled, queer, trans authors, and we're all asexual, and we all contributed different short stories. My short story is a young adult thriller about a girl named Violet who has cerebral palsy and hyperacusis. And she discovers her girlfriend is kidnapped and she has 48 hours to save her girlfriend from an anonymous enemy with the help of her Egyptian American best friend, Felix. So I'm going to be reading an excerpt from that short story. And I'm only going to be reading about 2 pages because I don't want to go over time. So, and it's from about the middle of the short story, so you get an exciting little snippet. After our unsettling encounter with Trevor, I check my phone again. Still no text from Nova. I try again. Where are you? Did you forget about our date tonight? Text me. When a full hour passes, Felix turns to me. Guess she's not coming, huh? It's not like Nova to do something like this. Could she be hanging out with Trevor? I don't dare say that out loud. Maybe she's studying in the library, Felix suggests. Something feels off to me, not sure what it is. I send Nova another text, just in case she missed my other ones. Anyway, I'm gonna head back to my dorm, since it's getting late already. Want some company on the way back? Felix asks. I nod, and the two of us head in the direction of my dorm, enveloped by silence for the entire way home. I resist checking my phone again, but an uneasy sense of dread washes over me. The next morning, Saturday, I wake up to a text from an unknown number. There's a video attached and the message reads, "Hit play." I'm about to delete the spammy text when another message comes through. Same unknown number, different message. Trust me, Violet, you're going to want to see this. I open the video, an image of myself pops up on the screen. I draw a sharp intake of breath. Hello, Violet, let me get right to the point. If you're wondering about where your girlfriend is, I have her. And if you intend to save her, then I need you to listen to me very carefully. You have 48 hours starting right now. Another message will be coming soon with more instructions. It's not just the face, but the voice too. It sounds exactly like me. The screen goes black. Horror washes over me, and my hands shake so hard I almost drop my phone. I try calling Nova, but her phone takes me straight to voicemail. I text her again. Call me or at least text me. I'm getting worried now. The kidnapper is giving me 48 hours. I could call the police, but right now the only evidence I have is a video of me sent with cryptic messages on my phone, and I don't want them framing me for something I didn't do. I try calling some of Nova's other friends, like Emily, who's in an introductory neuroscience class with her, to work out when and where Nova was last seen, and then I contact Jocelyn. I didn't want to call her after how she treated me at the party, but she has classes with Nova, so she might have been one of the last people to see her. How would I know where she is? She's your girlfriend, not mine. I hang up, trying to ignore Jocelyn's rudeness. Instead of calling the police to report Nova is missing, I phone Felix. He picks up on the second ring. Felix, I say, my tone serious. I may have feigned lightness with Nova's friends, not telling them that she's missing. I don't want them showing up and accusing me of anything, but I have to tell him. Meet me in the dorm. Meet me at my dorm in a half an hour. It's about Nova. And that's it. Thank you.
Can you hear me? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lara can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. All right. All right, so we're gonna give Josie a little moment to sink in, be with us. You know how public transportation can be, it can be kind of arduous. And so we're gonna go ahead and introduce Mimzy Reiner next. Mimzy Reiner is a queer disabled writer best known for their ongoing How to Write a Blind Character blog series on Tumblr. Their blog posts draw on research, personal experience, and their own creative writing journey to guide writers through crafting disabled characters who are compelling while still being accurate and sensitive. Along with vision loss, they live with ADHD, autism, an undiagnosed chronic illness, and 3 mischievous cats.
Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thea's offered to read my sample for you guys. Some context. My blog has a core 6, I like to refer to them, of guides, and then a bunch of like additional little add-ons throughout the years. This is part of part 1 of the core 6, which is where I introduce everyone into like how to start writing a blind character.
Thank you, Mimzy. How to write disabled characters. The process begins with crafting the character, sketching out a rough idea of who they are as a person, their goals, their values, their interests, their history, and a loose idea for their character growth journey. If you're new to writing disabled characters, especially if you're able-bodied yourself, I think the following method might serve you well. In the beginning stages, pretend the character is not disabled. Write them the same way you write your able-bodied characters. Learn their history and what makes them interesting on the page. It's a lot easier to avoid biases and stereotypes if you pretend there's no reason for them in the first place. With a solid foundation for your character, you can move on to phase 2. Pretend they're now
time when you're making slow gin.
where they are disabled.
Helps
Is this a condition they have had from birth, or do they develop it later in life? How does that change their history? To try to focus on what new experiences they have instead of what experiences they might have lost in the timeline. You want to add to the character, not subtract. Regarding those experiences they might have lost, I encourage you to find a way to preserve them. Reimagine them with new eyes, with new abilities and limitations. Research possible accommodations to make seemingly impossible tasks possible. If you're writing science fiction or fantasy, feel free to invent new accommodations and disability aids, or redesign existing aids into your world. The crafting and reimagining method is something I think writers of all experience levels might benefit from. It certainly works for me. In previous attempts to write a disabled character with their disability chosen from the beginning, it often felt like boxing myself in before I'd even begun. My best characters were developed before I added a disability. So those are Mimzy's words. I stumbled a little bit, I apologize. So next, welcome. We have Jocelyn Mondragon Rosas, also known as, which I think is the coolest ever, at Josie the Dragons, across all social media platforms, is dedicated to building community by sharing disability y Latinidad through a political and creative lens. She is a disabled first-generation Chicana activist, speaker, and content creator from Southern Louisiana. Jocelyn's advocacy includes published essays, hashtag I am an ableist, and hashtag abled WTF, and creating safe spaces for disabled people to come together and share their experiences. Her work on access, disability justice, and the intersections disability and immigration has led her to speaking at universities, political organizations, and nonprofits. Jocelyn's organizing includes working with Congreso de Jornaleros of New Orleans on hashtag disabled entertained. You can learn more about Jocelyn at www.jocelyn.org. josieofthedragons.com. And now, if you want to read your work.
Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn. I'm gonna read y'all an essay that I wrote for someone's book that's coming out in September. It's called Why Are You So Sensitive? It's called I Don't Know How You Get Up with a Smile Every Day. I was about to take the first sips of my early morning coffee when my caregiver said, I don't know how you get up with a smile every day. I wanted to say that it's due to the coffee. Instead, I didn't say anything and took my first sip to prepare me for the rest of the ableist things she was about to say. It's true that when you have a disability, you do struggle. Sometimes you find smiling is easier than talking about when you're having high chronic pain days. Sometimes putting on a smile or even making a joke is easier than showing frustration at your local coffee shop for taking away straws. Sometimes putting on a smile and moving on with your day is easier than being in a constant fight for access and respect from the world. When non-disabled people say, I don't know how you get up with a smile every day, it makes me question what they think of my existence. Do they think I'm always sad? Do they think I see my life as a burden? Do they think I force myself to live each day? Yes, I struggle sometimes. I don't know anyone, even people with no disabilities, who hasn't ever struggled. And yet I don't question anyone's existence or how they get up in the morning. There's this common yet unspoken assumption from non-disabled people that you either have to be super positive about your life with a disability and its struggles, or that you hate your life so much you force yourself to get up every day. This assumption doesn't leave room for disabled people to be content with where we're at. This assumption also reduces our feelings and experiences to only being black and white, when we know humans and our emotions are much more complex than that. Yes, living with a disability or illness can be hard, but it's not fair to reduce our life to just pain. It's kind of like when a person with a disability dies and someone says they're no longer in pain or now they're free. Again, we might have experienced pain from our disabilities or illnesses, but that's not all that we experience. We have love and joy in our lives. We also have anger and sadness in our lives. And believe it or not, it doesn't always have to do with our disability. I mean, the other day I was just upset that I couldn't get a caramel frappe from McDonald's because the machine was broken. I understand some people may need hope to get by every day, but please don't make us into your inspiration just for living our lives with disabilities. Please don't question my existence. Our disabled existence isn't here to make you feel better about your non-disabled existence.
Thank you. And if we could just take a moment and clap for everyone, for all of them. So I kind of got lucky because I sent out 5 emails to people saying, hey, I'm doing this panel. And the first 3 people I sent emails to told me yes. So thank you. Thank you, Mimzy. Thank you, Josie. And thank you, Lara, for being here. So I want to say, I think as writers, as readers, we've all read something with something that's just trope-tastic, where it's so tropey that our eyes roll out of our head, right? And maybe out the door. So today, hopefully, we're able to have some discourse in order to make sure that we're not falling into those pits of tropes. And I think that Mimzy's recommendation regarding writing character first, then, you know, incorporating disability is just so wise and really an excellent recommendation. So I accidentally skipped over that part before, so I thought I'd just say that before we go into our question portion. So we're going to start with Lara. What is a sensitivity authenticity reader, and are they paid to do that job?
Okay, hi. Yes, I am a sensitivity authenticity reader. Basically a sensitivity or authenticity reader is a person with a marginalized identity or multiply marginalized identity that where a publishing company or an author or sometimes even a production company will, put a call out or they will find opportunities to have that marginalized person read an excerpt or a full manuscript of, an author's work or something like from a production company, like their work, and they will evaluate they will evaluate the marginalized identity and give them feedback in like a reader's report. So it's like a few pages or a page report of like what they did well with the identity and what could be improved and how they could improve it, as well as inline comments in the manuscript of where the representation could be improved. I mostly do this for disability representation, but I've done it for other types of representation as well. I've done it for Jewish representation and maybe ACE representation. I've mostly done it for disability representation, but also if you're like an academic, like an expertise in like an academic area, people have been hired to do those things in an academic area as well, and it is a paid job. Sometimes you have to negotiate with the publishing company on like how to get paid, but it is a paid job.
Thank you, Lara. So my next question is for you, Josie. Your work is a lot of places. Did it come easy to you, or were there people in your path that discouraged you from using your words?
So, yes, in fact, it was the very people that I believed would be there for me. So the people who discouraged me were like professors and teachers who said that my writing was too simple because I didn't use like academic words or academically, I don't speak like with big words. Unfortunately, I was pulled out of a lot of like English and grammar classes. So I was discouraged that my writing was too rushed, too simple. And so growing up, I was always self-conscious of my writing. But it is because of social media where I found community and people that really heard my words and really took them in. And that's where I started to feel more confidence in my writing and realize that not everyone has your best interest in mind and not everybody really is meant to understand.
That's true. And I also think that sometimes people are threatened by simplicity because it makes information accessible, and that's intimidating. But that's just my opinion. My next question is for Mimzy. You are so kind and informative in the way you provide information to those who pose questions to you about writing the blind or disabled experience. Who are your readers?
So I started on Tumblr because I'd been on Tumblr for years. It was the platform that was familiar to me. And after I posted my first 4 or 5 guides, I started to see the comments and feedback I was getting and realized a lot of these writers were newer writers like me, who didn't have the resources to pay for a sensitivity writer or sensitivity reader, who didn't have any experts in a particular field that they could talk to, who were maybe isolated because of their age or whatever factors going on in their life. So I saw a lot of my younger self in them. And moreover, the audience that I had, the way they talked to me and communicated with me was so respectful and kind and so full of like an earnest desire to know more. I wanted to return that sentiment and that kindness, and it created this feedback loop of everyone just being very respectful as we kind of developed this safe place to ask questions and discussions.
And I encourage everyone to check out their blog because it's just amazing. Like the tone of like observing the person who's asking the question and then answering the question in a way that's authentic and also aligned with your values. I think it's really well done. All right, so I'm going to start with Josie here, and then I'm going to move on to Lara, and then to Mimzy, since they and I are using a microphone, sharing one. So who inspires your writing, Josie?
Myself and my disabled community, my familia, and I like to write a lot about what disabled existence means, privately or publicly. However we share our experience, our existence. I really like to think about the disabled existence in terms of autonomy, how disabled people have like choices, and like how sometimes we feel like we may not have choices in our lifestyles or with our bodies. I like to think about childhood as a disabled kid growing up, because I was born disabled. And how my experience may be different from somebody who gained a later in life, but they're both valid and they're both important experiences that we all need to learn from and hear from. Yeah.
Thank you. And Lara, how about you? Who inspires your writing?
I would say a lot of like before Being Ace came out, especially, and even after, since a lot of other disabled writers, disabled authors who have, come before me and written works with disabled characters, because reading their writing is really amazing, and that definitely inspires me, especially getting to like beta read for them or something. So other disabled writers, and also like my life experiences and what I experience in day-to-day life, experiences from my childhood. And for screenwriting, I would say definitely like certain TV shows and movies and things that I watch have inspired my screenplays and screenwriting as well, and like how to put a disability bent into something that doesn't have disabled characters. So I would say that, and also animals. Like I love dogs and wolves, so you'll probably find a dog or a wolf in my stories. So my dogs, and I love wolfies, and that inspires me too.
Thank you. And that's a good segue into Mimzy, because wolves are. So what inspires you?
So the comment about wolves is about a book series I'm reading where the werewolf, one of the main characters, is one. And as far as like when it comes to my creative writing and my poetry, a lot of my personal experiences and how I perceive the world with my sensations, those make it in a lot of my descriptors and my prose. But when it comes to my blog, not to sound salty, but it's my readers that inspire me, specifically because Tumblr has these two functions. One, my blog has the ability to pose an anonymous question to me, and I can answer it when I get the time. And gives me a chance to answer questions I didn't even know I needed answering, or to be recommended shows and media with playing characters that I didn't know existed. And then the secondary source of feedback I get from my readers is that Tumblr has developed this adorable culture of writing your personal thoughts in the archive tags. So it almost becomes like a place where you can just kind of write down what you're thinking before it gets lost in the void, and it's written with the intention that other people are allowed to come see it and review it. We call it peer reviewing, when you screenshot someone's tags and respond to them directly. So it gives me the feedback to know where are the holes in my information.
Thank you. And what are you working on right now, Josie?
I'm currently working on an op-ed called 19 Years After Katrina. Disabled folks are still underwater, and hoping it's published for August 29th, which is the anniversary and traumaversary of Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Ida, as someone who grew up in Louisiana and unfortunately lost my home to Hurricane Ida. So I'm hoping to speak on that.
I hope that finds a home for that date. I'm sure it'll find a home, but specifically for that date. And Lara, how about you? What are you currently working on?
I am currently querying my PhD dissertation novel. It's an adult contemporary fantasy with physical disability, mental health rep, asexual rep, and Egyptian representation that is based on my own lived experience. So I'm querying that, and then For like newer projects, I'm working on a short story for an anthology that I don't know if I'm in yet, so I don't want to announce it, but I'm working on that, and it's a young adult horror with a disabled main character, and I'm also working on a young adult horror novel that's loosely based on one of the scripts that I wrote last year. It's like a horror pilot, so I adapted it, and I'm writing like the young adult version of that script. So that's what I'm working on.
Humans.
My book series is a magical realism contemporary fantasy with 3 primary main characters, all of whom are queer and neurodivergent or disabled in some way. And beyond the initial cast, a lot of the characters in the world around them are also experiencing disabled experiences. With my blog, I'm going back on posts that I wrote, because this blog started 5 years ago, going back on older posts and kind of restructuring it so that it's got more information, more streamlined, which is where the excerpt that was read to you today came from.
Thank you. And how many here are workshop facilitators or educators of some sort? Okay, so this question is for all of y'all. What is a simple accommodation you would like to have readily available without having to ask? We'll start with Mimzy, and then we'll go to Josie, and then Lara.
I suspect this first one is going to be mentioned again, but Zoom is an option for an attendance. Another one I would like is if everyone uploaded their printed materials or handouts to a shared folder, preferably in a format where you can change the font. This makes it more accessible to people who are dyslexic or who have vision impairments like myself. And then image descriptions. Yes, please describe your informative graphics of basic information, but I think you should also describe any art that you've included in the workshop, especially if it was commissioned or if it was made by someone within the group. Describing the art goes beyond accessibility. It's inclusion into the experience.
So, flexibility and extended deadlines. I think disabled people and really just everyone were forced to follow this this deadline on like assignments, whatever in life, or even just in general in life. I'm just thinking about time now, but so I think when it comes to deadlines and flexibility, I think we're always made to follow the standard of what non-disabled people expect something to be turned in or can be accomplished. So I feel like, so to me, that's the biggest one. And of course, hybrid options for both Zoom and in person for people who can go to school when they can, or when people can't go to school for whatever reason. And of course, doing everything by a person's disability, not just by standards of how much they need.
And also in the educational environment, like if you're demanding something that the person has accommodations in place for, and if their accommodations are already giving them that leeway and you're not doing that, you're outside of ADA compliance. What you are doing could put whoever you're working for at a legal disadvantage because they're not able to access things, and the reasonable accommodations are in place for purpose. Yeah. Oh, and Lara.
I would also say Zoom or have remote and hybrid options. I think that's a really big one, because we all know that it is possible now, and there are no more excuses that like, oh, this can't be done. Like, we're writers, writing can be done on Zoom. I would also say image descriptions and subtitles would also be a big help, because I find that like when I'm watching YouTube videos, it's easier to follow along if they've been subtitled, like if it's done well, than if there aren't any subtitles. And I'm not even deaf or hard of hearing, but like it could be an ADHD autism thing too, that subtitles can be an accommodation. So I find subtitles a really big help. And I would say Zoom and hybrid remote options would be the biggest accommodation, especially as we're all writers and writing can be done remotely.
Thank you. And how did Zoom change your interaction within the creative community? Lara?
It helped a lot. I got a grant for like a novel that I wrote before my dissertation, a young adult fantasy novel, like from an organization that was about like being like COVID aware, and it really helped us like have a community of people that we would meet. When we were awarded this grant, we would meet periodically to discuss everyone had a different creative project, and we would meet to discuss our different creative projects, and we were being paid a little bit of money for it, and it was really helpful to have that community, stuff like that. So that was like one example, but it definitely helped having that creative community and having, access to types of different types of writers, different types of people and creatives to have Zoom as an option.
Thank you. Mimzy?
So the interaction I had with the writing community before 2020 was in online spaces asynchronously. There were workshops and writing circles in my area, certainly, but they weren't accessible to me because of my inability to drive and my chronic illness and energy levels. But these online spaces, as freeing as they were, did make it hard to connect with people and grow connections. My first writing workshop that was co-current was organized by my university. And there are multiple groups of us. Most of the other groups would meet outside because COVID was still very prevalent, but my group of 5 girls, we were all very understanding that my vision was at its worst when I was in harsh lighting, especially outside in fluorescence. So we agreed to meet via Zoom so I would be comfortable instead of vulnerable and able to participate easily instead of lagging behind everyone else.
And Josie?
Yeah, it opened a lot of doors for me. One, it opened the door for community because I hadn't met a lot of disabled people in this world. Because I grew up housebound, it also opened a lot of doors for me professionally. I was able to do speaking virtually into different states, and that was really amazing in itself. And I was able to attend classes whenever I couldn't make it because of my disability or because the caregiver didn't show up. And I would like to quickly say that another accommodation that I thought of is, how do you say it? Wait, it's gonna come back to me. Sometimes I forget things, sorry.
You can, if it comes back to you at the end, you can tell us then. Or if we're exiting the door and you're like, oh, you can tell me then. Yeah, scream it, call us off. So the next question I have, I'm not going to go in a particular order. I'm just going to give it to you to answer. Have you ever had a job or educational opportunity that was later withdrawn because of your disability or need for accommodations? So actually, I'm going to start with Lara, and then the two of you, if you have something to add.
Yes, I have. So something, because I'm in the entertainment industry as well, I'm trying to break in as a TV writer, and something in the TV writing trajectory is that people, you get like people get like entertainment industry internships like when they're in school and stuff like that, and that's a very big stepping stone to other types of jobs, showrunner's assistant, writer's assistant, which I also can't do, but it might lead to other opportunities. And I remember I applied I was awarded a grant, or not a grant, like a scholarship from a disability rights organization when I was doing my PhD, and this was before COVID, so it was about 2018. And I was awarded this scholarship, and they said, okay, you get priority consideration for an internship with this major company. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it's like Disney, it's a big company, and you get priority consideration for this internship. So I said, okay, great, maybe that'll like help me get in. So I have the phone interview with the people at this company, and this was fall of 2018. And I said, like, they were having the interview, it was going great. And I said, like, oh, by the way, because of my disabilities, like, I can't drive, so it's gonna be hard for me to like get there and stuff. Like, can you do like remote, or like, can we make something work? And all of a sudden they weren't interested in me anymore, and they hung up on me. So that's my big famous story. And breaking into the entertainment industry is very difficult. And if there aren't like remote opportunities and things like that, because I mean, this panel's in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is very dependent on you must be able to drive. And like all of us panelists, we can't drive. So it needs to be like more accommodating and open to remote options, like what Zoom did during early pandemic.
So it was never said so succinctly, oh, we are withdrawing this application because XYZ, we can't provide these things because that's illegal. Instead, if you got the opportunity, there would be this atmosphere of, oh, you're so lucky to be here. There are so many people who want your position. Now jump through XYZ hoops. And that's late stage capitalism at large, but the you're so lucky to be here attitude becomes increasingly oversweet and oversaturated, and you are so easy to replace.
Uh-oh.
The school because I knew my school would still not provide the resources that I needed for support. And it was only after that I actually learned from disabled folks is that when universities and professors recommend medical leaves to students, they know they're not coming back. And so that's what happened. And yeah, so accommodation is take away the tardy and late absences, or don't apply it, or I don't know, don't. In general, I said don't apply it, but if you have to do it, I would really think about the person's disability.
Thank you. Sorry you experienced that. The next question, and I'm going to start with Lara because I have object permanence problems, and Lara's behind me. So Lara, you do exist. It's just looking forward, I forget. Have you ever opted to not apply or submit to a job or grant or fellowship or mentorship because you felt it wouldn't have accommodations?
Yes, and I want to say yes and no, because I have applied to things that I didn't feel would that they would accommodate me, but I'm like, well, I'm going to apply anyway, and I'll just show up and I'll wear a mask and, whatever. And hopefully they have other accommodations and I'll apply anyway. But there are definitely some fellowships and opportunities and jobs and things that I haven't applied for because I know from previous experience that they won't. So I'm trying to apply for more, remote positions and stuff like that because they don't like to accommodate you if you can't drive. So yeah, that has happened.
There are programs that I have declined or avoided because the workload and the deadlines were much harsher than my chronic illness and my autism ADHD would allow me. And then there's the barrier of commuting, which everyone here can relate to. It's already a financially demanding time suck for able-bodied people. Add the barriers of poverty, shifting energy levels, poor health, and you've created a Lord of the Rings-like quest that you need to perform twice daily. And you're Frodo.
Yeah, not a problem. Have you ever opted to not apply or submit to a grant, a job grant, fellowship, or mentorship, etc., because you felt it wouldn't have accommodations?
Yes, with a job, it was last year. I was really excited about it. It was a content creation job and writing for a nonprofit. And throughout the process, they were based in San Francisco and I was based in Los Angeles. And I asked if my accommodation could be a remote instead of going in person. And they told me, well, we'd really like for this person to come into the office. We only come once a week or like once a month. And I said, okay, well, I'm based in Los Angeles. Is there any way you could accommodate that? And they're like, no, we would. They're like, if you moved to San Francisco, would you be able to come to the office? And I said, no, regardless if I were in San Francisco or not, I would still need remote options because, wheelchairs, transportation, that's hard. And so they're like, okay, let's continue the interview. And then I said, no, actually, I don't want to continue the interview because you're showing me that you can't provide access or accommodation. And it's proven that when you provide access and accommodations to disabled people, it not only benefits the disabled person, but it benefits everyone in the room.
I'm going to ask this question to Mimzy first, since they're the inspiration for it. And then we'll go with Lara and then Josie. Is there anything that non-disabled or perhaps people with other disabilities say or try to amend that can make things awkward?
So, the post that inspired this was someone had asked me, should I avoid saying words like see and watch to my blind friend? Like, oh yeah, look, it's over there. And, oh, do you want to go watch a movie with me? And my response was, no, don't change that language. You want to be able to communicate clearly. The words see and watch have been evolved to involve more than just your eyes. You watch movies, but you can be looking away from the screen. You can read an audiobook, but you're listening to it. Language has evolved to be a bit more fluid than the literal sense. So in the end, what you want to do is just be as clear and smooth in your language as possible. Give yourself grace to mess up. If you mess up, just quickly correct yourself. And move forward. You don't have to apologize and apologize and apologize and say that you're so new to this because that's okay. Everyone's going to be new to this at least once in their life. Just keep going. We're here for you.
You and Lara?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. Sorry about that. Is there anything that non-disabled or perhaps people with other disabilities say or try to amend that they can that can make things awkward?
Yes, I would say that people, I think, but I'm gonna answer this question kind of in a different way, and I don't know if it'll answer it this way. I think one of the things that was really illuminating for me is that it's not just other disabled people or non-disabled people can make things awkward. There's a lot of infighting within the disability community and a lot of like internalized ableism and like other kinds of things. And I have also been bullied by members of the disability community like a lot of times. And I think that like people, I think other able people don't realize that that's a thing that can happen. So it's not just awkwardness, it's like there becomes like a hierarchy, or there's different kinds of things where people with disabilities, like they think, oh, people will think, oh, that other people with disabilities can't be mean or can't say things that are weird or say, and people with disabilities were just like, any other people who say and do certain things. So I think that people have the capacity to be, to be kind and to be that kind of stuff. So I think that it's not only awkwardness, but it's also that people can be, people can be nasty, and there needs to be more room for kindness and compassion and understanding, especially within the disability community with different disabilities. I know that doesn't answer the question exactly, but that was the best I could come up with.
It works. It was a good answer. And Josie,
You are not your disability. One, I don't need to be told about my identity. And two, I think it's very important to acknowledge that if a disabled person is struggling, yes, it could be because of disability or illness, but it's also because of the ableism, lack of access that they could be struggling with in their environment, or even isolation that a lot of non-disabled people do to disabled people, and erasure in like the medical system and things like that. So I don't like hearing you are not your disability at all. And yeah.
and then this is for everyone. What is one thing that you would like other writers, workshop facilitators, or creative spaces to know about disability? Do you want to start with that, Josie? Yeah, you can go last. Do you want to start with that, Mimzy?
Okay, because of the diversity of disability, and the fact that many disabilities, are new and unfamiliar to us at least once. You will sometimes come across accommodations and requests that make you think that makes no sense. How does that work? Why do you need that? Don't question it. Embrace the new and the unknown and do your best to accommodate them. Approach the situation with open acceptance instead of skepticism. Maybe at that time, the person who is disabled making this accommodation request doesn't have the energy to explain why it's needed, but it's still needed. You might be able to learn more about the disability in the future going forward, but you're going to miss out on that opportunity if you are just holding up walls and barriers instead of creating accommodations.
And Lara?
I kind of want to echo what Mimzy said. I think they are spot on. And I would also say, like, be open to, like, if a disabled person is coming to you and saying, like, hey, I need these accommodations, or like, just be open to that and work with the person or people to figure out what they would need for that workshop or that, that creative space. Because like Mimzy said, every disability is different, and you don't just need ramps. You might need, a sign language interpreter, or, large print books, or, just work with the disabled person and ask them what they need, and, do your best to figure out what that accommodation would be.
I just want to add, like, in academic setting, or in life in general, where there are accommodations in place or where people are able to ask for accommodations, there's so many hoops people have to jump through in order to access accommodations. It is not easy. It is not simple. It requires a lot of patience on the person who's seeking accommodations part. Like, to me, sometimes when I'm writing these technical reports, like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have like so much patience, and no, it's not easy. So if there's any way that we can create a bit more access and things to be a little bit easier, I think that it's time to start that conversation. So I only have 3 more questions to ask. Oh, sorry. Object permanence, sorry.
It's because I thought of it, it's like half an hour enough. Okay, so, acknowledge and recognize your ableism, and when you mess up, I think it's okay to say like, hey, I didn't know what to say, or hey, I don't know if you go by person first, I didn't see first, it's okay to, you know, it's okay to ask questions in that way, because I think I would rather, and I'm just speaking for myself, I think I would rather a person tell me that they don't know, because then I know they're open to learning, and they're open to changing their language and, or how they view disability in general. Because it took me, you know, it took me, I'm gonna be 30 next year, oh my gosh. It took me until like, to my early mid-20s when I really found my voice, how I view disability, and I'm still always learning things. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and like I told everyone when we got together, I care about being correct, I don't care about being right. So I accidentally forgot Josie because I called on Josie, and in my head I said, okay, I recognize Josie. And then Mimzy was nice enough to just like tap my elbow a little bit. I'm like, okay, I messed up. So the next one is, what disabled writers should we be reading? And I open this up to anyone. You can say me. Not me, but you.
I think a really great starting base for everyone would be disability visibility. First person stories for the 21st century, edited by Alice Wong. It's an anthology of short stories by disabled writers. It's a really great place to sort of like sample different writers. And if you connect to someone, you can go and read more of their work.
Can you say it again?
Disability visibility. First person stories for the 21st century, edited by Alice Wong.
Lara?
Okay, so I read a lot of young adult fiction, so I'm gonna recommend young adult fiction by disabled authors. I would recommend One for All by Lily Lainoff. It's about a girl with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and it's a Three Musketeers retelling. I would recommend Claire Forrest's Where You See Yourself, about a girl with cerebral palsy who is working through her senior year trying to get into college. And I would recommend, oh my gosh, there's so many, but I'll think of one more that I just read is Time and Time Again by Chatham Greenfield, about a girl with IBS. And it's a young adult speculative romance.
Thank you. And IBS is just something that's recently been classified as a disability for those who aren't familiar. And Josie, do you have anyone you recommend?
I was also gonna recommend Alice Wong because I love Alice's work. But, you know, I also think children books by disabled people. My friend just wrote one called The Adventures of Adeline, and the reason I say this is because I think, you know, disabled people who who do children's books, they bring in this whole perspective that I wish I had growing up, but also that I wish non-disabled people knew. And so a lot of these children's books, they talk about isolation within their community. They talk about access problems within the school. They talk about representation. And so I highly recommend like picking up a children's book by a disabled person. I think that they're very empowering and you can learn a lot from them.
Okay, I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to save those to open up questions to everyone else because we only have about 9 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Questions, comments, observations, curiosities?
Oh, well,
I'd like to just thank you for educating us today. I've learned a lot, and I want to carry the empathy that I'm feeling today on in my life. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This is kind of my favorite thing to do. That's why I'm here. From online.
So I want to say, oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I'm just curious about, I mean, I know Mimzy, you talked about your work is in Tumblr. Jocelyn, maybe your work is online, but as you're sending your work out, do you find that the journals are receptive? I mean, just thinking about the women who submit, you know, beginnings were all about getting women's voices out there, and how receptive are you finding publications to your work?
If you go, there are publications and organizations that are looking specifically for marginalized voices, and who are more likely to be heard out there. For those where it's just open to the full cast of every writer out there, where they're not mentally thinking about what biases they might be bringing when they view an author profile, that's when you can kind of run into issues where maybe you're getting rejected before you've even been considered. But a lot of the literary organizations that focus on marginalized voices are also looking for marginalized stories where your experience is very much interwoven into your writing. But not every disabled writer wants to write about being disabled. Some writers just want to write a fantasy story with sword fighting, and that's totally cool, but they're still being discouraged from publishing because they're disabled.
So you can find my work on social media. It's on Instagram. All of my posts have writings attached to them. Some of it is spicy, just let you know. But in terms of like discouragement, yeah, I think like as disabled people, we're always told you have to write about your disability, you have other opinions, you know, so does everyone. But people forget that like there's intersectionality into play. And when it comes to different perspectives, different lenses. And so sometimes I do feel discouraged to write about, you know, my experiences, or even just submitting. And yeah, because I don't always want to talk about disability, even though I am disabled. But I have a lot of things to say about a lot of things. So.
And Lara, I know you're in academia and I was gonna say literary. What is your experience?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I submit a lot of like short stories, and I mean I'm gonna write about disabled characters anyway, so it's like whether they accept it or not, like I do submit to when I'll see like, oh, we're looking for marginalized voices, or we're specifically looking for disability or whatever. I'll submit to that, that's fine. But I'm gonna write about, you know, what I'm gonna write about regardless. So, you know, if you get a rejection, it's like there, I don't think for some things they could be rejecting based on, you know, writing about disability. But I think, you know, getting a lot of form rejections, they're probably not rejecting based off of like disability or your marginalization, although it could happen. But and I haven't done like a lot of academic publishing, so I can't really speak to that. But I think the answer is like it depends, because it depends on the magazine or publication or opportunity. But I do think publishing is a lot more open in terms of marginalized voices, and you know, allowing people to you know, submit work and create work versus like the entertainment industry. I think they have a long way to go in terms of, you know, their acceptance and wanting marginalized voices in behind and in front of the camera. But I think publishing is a little more accepting from what I've seen.
I think also that sometimes with publishers, they are used to the tropes. So if you're writing from your voice and it's not troperific and they don't recognize it, then they're like, oh, you know, because I often write neurodivergent characters, and if the person's like, oh, well, I didn't even know this was a neurodivergent person, I just thought it was kind of off, right? And then my friends who are neurodivergent writers are like, oh my God, I feel so seen, you know, but there's so many tropes present for each disability that a lot of times people don't even recognize their own bias and their inability to recognize that people have diverse experiences in disability. Yes, so Jean.
I was wondering, hello.
Oh, hi. Well, I was wondering if I could get people's handle, because Josie mentioned Instagram, and I was actually looking for your Instagram. Oh, I couldn't find it. So handle, where can we follow you? It's Jocy, Jocy of the Dragons. Sorry, I was Game of Thrones inspired, but also my last name, so. So Jocy of the Dragons, Jocy of the Dragons. Mimzy writing online at tumblr.com. My Mimzy is spelled Mimzy. And then Mimzy Reiner is pretty much name attached to all of my author socials.
And Lara?
Mine is at True Cherry Girl. It's TruCherrygirl, and that's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. And then I don't have a website yet, I'm sorry, but if you look up my name and the word writer, you can find my various publications across the interwebs.
And now I just sitting here and I realize, like, I've been wrong this whole time. Sorry, Jocelyn. So the last question I think I'm going to ask you, because we kind of hit the other one, is what's next for you professionally or creatively? Start with Jocelyn, then go to Mimzy, then Lara.
So I currently work for an organization called New Disabled South, and right now I'm helping them with content writing, and I'm doing the op-ed for our. Sorry, I can't really say that. I forgot I'm not supposed to talk about it, but yeah. So I'm currently working on an op-ed for them, and I'm working on a book called Keep Staring. Sigue mirando. I've mentioned A Witch's Memory, which you can find information about on my blog. That's a very long, ongoing project. Outside of my creative writing, I'm currently working on going through all of my posts and sort of reorganizing them. I don't have a set timeline for that because I am very much beholden to the limitations of my own body.
And Lara?
Yeah, so what's next for me professionally is I'm teaching a class online. It's a 6-week online writing class with women on writing called Writing Disabled Characters in Fiction. And I would love for people to sign up. And that's 6 weeks and it's online and it starts October 15th. So if you look up my name and Women on Writing, you should be able to find it. I do take clients for sensitivity and authenticity reading pretty much all the time. So I always would love to get hired and help people with their books and scripts or whatever they are working on. And then creatively, I'm querying my PhD dissertation novel, the adult contemporary fantasy, and working on a new young adult horror novel as well. And that's pretty much it. And oh, one more thing. And I applied to some TV writing fellowships and I'm hoping to get into those, but I won't find out for till at least September, October. So we'll see.
We'll keep our figurative or literal fingers crossed for you. Last slide, please, Sochi. So that is the end of our panel today. I just want to say happy anthology birthday to you, Josie, because the digital version of the anthology is available. Because when I looked at it last night at midnight, It's like, it drops today. And then you can pre-order the hardback.
So the author is Billy Lee, and I wrote 2 essays for the book, and there's a bunch of different authors you can learn from, so I highly recommend you go check it out. Oh my God, I didn't know.
Yeah, so happy book birthday. And then Clara's book is, Being Ace is available through sellers. You can go to bookshop.com, order it today. And Mimzy, can you give us your Tumblr?
Mimzy-writing-online.tumblr.com.
So I can provide that to Sochi later, if Sochi wants me to send links and then she can send them all to y'all. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. And thank you for being amazing and wonderful panelists. Have a wonderful day.